What is up, Fresh Coast Gaming fans? This is Will. I and many others from the club just got back from Adepticon, and one thing that I couldn't wait to crack open, I wanted to show this to you guys. I picked up the miniatures board game Ethereum from Anvil 8 Games, and I'm not too into the rules and the mechanics yet, but I just want to kind of show you guys what's in there and talk a little bit about how it plays from what I know so far. But please bear with me, haven't cracked into too much of the rule book here, which is gorgeous. I'll give you a look. Alright, let's check it out. Alright, I wanted to get a quick shot of this awesome box. The back of the box here shows you kind of what you're working with. You got the models for two factions, which right now are the Aetherium and the Nanome, and you have the activation order cards, the stat cards and abilities for each of the units, critical damage cards, all the tokens for all the effects in the game, rulebook, and two play boards for each of the players. Custom dice that are, I'm always a fan of when they're really well done. The way that these work are really cool. The RAM tokens, which keep track of another sort of resource you have in the game. And then the play mat, which you see in the background, is the server, which you put the schema tiles on, which are these tiles that you actually will walk your characters around on and play the game on. So, if I just jump over here, so here's the play mat, and I was really happy with the quality. You know, we see these a lot nowadays, but it has the non-stick bottom, and it is the kind of mouse pad material that gives you kind of a nice playing surface. And it is also, it was folded up in the box just about an hour ago, and now it is totally flat on my table. So I'm really happy with that, that there's not any sort of quality issues with that. So the schema tiles are various sizes, and they have basically terrain on them. There's little icons here which dictate a couple types of terrain. There's impassable, there's difficult or resistors, which will increase the movement that you need to move through it. And then there's also line of sight blocking, which will not restrict movement, but with some abilities will alter those. So there's a lot of different varying ones of those, and of course, you know, they are two-sided, so there's a lot of options for the different scenarios in the book. And of course the models. Here is some nodes and pylons, which are some of the objectives in the game. The bases to the models all are resin, and they do have the Anvil 8 icon on the back there. I thought that was a nice touch. The models I didn't dig into. I haven't cleaned them up yet, of course. But they are all resin, and they look really nice. There's, I think it's listed as 32mm size, and they are, though, of like a true scale. They have a lot of detail, and they're, I like the style, I like the art. It's kind of course, what leads you to a lot of games. I was able to get a promotional item from there at Adepticon as part of the swag bag. And so this is actually how quite a few additional units come now. So for both of the factions there are additional units, quite a few actually, and you'll see these in a store, and you'll be able to pick up just the units that you'll be wanting. And there's also another faction on the horizon, which is teased in the book and has been on the old Kickstarter, which is quite cool. So I'm going to go over a couple other pieces here in a second. Alright, so I wanted to go over the other parts in the box here. Of course, first you got the die, and these die have the symbols on them, which correspond to basically what you want to roll to match a combination to do the first, second, or third amount of damage from the attack. So they also have an outline on some of the icons which serve as kind of a trigger, and that produces a different effect per model, which I think is very cool, that each model can do a different trigger effect. Sometimes it can be offensive, or I believe it can be defensive too, or to kind of help you out. These are the acrylic RAM tokens, which keep track of the RAM resource which you have, which you can use to overclock units, which give them more CS, more action points, or to move the tiles, the schema tiles on the board, which I had a good time with in the demo, because of course, just when you think something is going to happen on the board, you forget that actually the surface you're playing on can move your units and your opponents, and really create some things you didn't see coming. Acrylic firewall tokens, which were really cool. In the game, there's things that can create firewalls. Some of them block line of sight. Some of them will do damage if you move through them. Things like that. So always cool to have a 3D token instead of a 2D. Another set of dice for your other faction, and just a little bit different color. All the tokens in the game, just for some different for different abilities and claiming objectives that you may have. And so then these are the player boards. Up here is your RAM resource, which you'll keep track of. You spend that during your turn, and then you can also, I believe you get it back after you recalibrate. And that can, overclock units or perform some abilities. And they also, when you're claiming objectives in the game, you're actually getting more of that resource. So sometimes you need to, you kind of see as the game plays out, you need to capture some objectives to get some more RAM before you can actually start doing some of the more heavy things. So on the boards, there's the pad, which you'll use these cards, which kind of have like an art print on them. You'll actually kind of program your turn. So you'll take your cards and you'll put them face down in the order that you want as your side you will program. It is an alternating activation game, but you don't know the order in which your opponent's going to activate. So in some games, obviously, some opponent may throw you a loop, activate one thing that you didn't see coming. And then you can always react. You can say, oh, okay, well, since you did that, I'm going to throw up a blocker or something. But in this, you've already chosen the order of your activations. It's not that limiting. It's actually interesting that you kind of have to deal with kind of what you program out. And it does kind of call back a little bit to the programming theme of this game, which is really cool. So the types of units, you'll have your avatar, kind of your leader or your strongest unit there, a function, and those are kind of special units, or kind of middle. They have stronger abilities. They have kind of a defined role, and then subroutines are kind of your lowest level units with some of the most high numbers of models. I believe most units are 1 to 4 or possibly 5 models, so pretty cool. They move and activate as kind of like a linked unit, and they I believe there's a couple different rules for how close they stay in a formation. So your pad is where you'll put your activation cards up here. You'll put that face down, and when you burn through this in your alternate activations, you'll then recalibrate. I did see this game referred to as turnless, which was pretty interesting. So the turnless mentality is you are reorganizing your deck in the way that you want to activate your units, but you're not doing that at the same time as your opponent. Obviously you will lose units, they'll be deleted, or you may just start with more or less units than your opponent. So both of you are just kind of constantly playing your board, playing your hand. The console damage cards here, I'm not incredibly sure. I haven't read too much into this yet, but obviously they have some critical damage effects. This one is quite involved, but I love the theme. I love when, like in some other games, when you take critical damage, it can actually throw, you know, some loops in the game and some interesting thematic things. The unit cards here, they have the combination for your attack damage here, and then your kind of your damage track for your attack, and then the CS, and that's the kind of the action points, and then the overclock value, which is how many RAM it takes to give this guy one more action point, or CS. And then they have the abilities, the EXEs, which they're called, and they cost a number of CS. And then also there is the wounds, or the damage at the bottom that they can sustain, and that, you know, can be marked with a dry erase marker, because these are you can see kind of a glossy card here. And there's also a safeguard ability on the back. Sorry guys, my focus is tripping out, but defensive and offensive abilities. And there's also, like I talked about, the triggers are in here, and sometimes you need one trigger, sometimes you need two. Obviously you can tell that's quite hard to get, but it can be pretty devastating. So that is about it. I am very excited to kick this off with some guys and see some of the scenarios. Was talking to the guys from Anvil 8, you know, definitely thinking about more scenarios, expansions. As I mentioned, there's already more units than are in this box. And there's also the new faction, I believe the Ikaru, which are kind of samurai robots, which I really like the idea of. You know, we have the Ethereum, we have two human factions, which are kind of putting their consciousness inside the world and fighting for it. But then there's also potentially an AI that is going to be causing trouble here and trying to take their ground. So very cool, very excited. We're definitely going to be bringing you more Adepticon footage and coverage, and look forward to it. Thanks guys.